removing limitations and barriers caused by biases. Well, I've heard this young lady speak a number of times, and you will walk away with some important information presented in only a way that she presents. Let us give a warm welcome here and online. We want to see those hands online as well to Toastmaster Beasley as she educates us on inclusive excellence.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I just want to come on and say good morning to all of you that are in the room, to you that are on Zoom. Thank you so much. I see this is recording. Thank you so much. So today I'm going to share some information with you about inclusion. And before I start, let me introduce myself. My name is Yvette Beasley. I am a senior consultant in the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging department with Blue Cross Blue Shield Association. I'm a member of Toastmasters of Blue Cross Blue Shield Association and Prosperity Toastmasters, where Melody Bird founded that club last year. So let's jump right in. This is going to be an interactive presentation today. So if you have your smartphone, for those of you that are in the room and on Zoom, you can take your smartphone out, look at this QR code that you see. Oh, those that are in the room don't see it. That's interesting. I didn't know we didn't have a screen here. We're gonna share that. If we can share that QR code, because it will come in handy for you in the room. And that way you'll be able to interact with us in this presentation. You should be able to see the presentation on the screens as well. There it is. So if you pull out your phones and use your camera, take this QR code, you will see the presentation as it goes on your phone. So we don't have to have it on the screen necessarily. You can see it on your phone. It's going to be interactive. So I'm going to ask you to respond to some questions. You can give me some thumbs up or thumbs down if you don't agree, some hearts. You can interact with this presentation today. So I'm hoping everyone has had a chance in Zoom. If you can give us some thumbs up in the chat and let us know that you have scanned that QR code, and I see phones out. So it looks like we are ready to proceed. I want to start off today with a quote from Maya Angelou. And her quote said, "You know better. Then when you know better, do better." That's where we want to ground in today. We're going to start off with do the best you can with inclusion. But when you know better, if you get some aha moments out of today, then implement that and do better. Take an initiative to increase inclusion, even in work, personal relationships. Take that initiative to want to do better. So that's our grounding in for today. Let's talk about inclusion. This is the corporate definition of inclusion. I like to say it's making everybody feel welcome, making everybody feel like their voice is important and you are at the table, so you have a reason to be there, and making them feel welcome to bring their authentic self, no matter what that looks like. But inclusion says that you're welcome here. Come in and share with me. Let's interact together. That's what inclusion brings. And when we can model that in excellence in our Toastmasters Club, in our work environment, at home, with our families, you'll begin to see different outcomes. So this is inclusion, and this is what we're going to dig into today. Here's a question for you to interact on your phones. What's one word that you think when you say inclusion? Throw some words up there. What are words that foster inclusion for you? You can type that in. You have an opportunity to submit 3 answers. And as people type those words in, you'll begin to see them on the screen. What does inclusion look like to you? welcome, acceptance. Anybody else? What does inclusion look like to you? Look at those words that's coming up. Belonging, open, all, togetherness. Yeah. Understanding. That's what inclusion looks like. These are words from your peers. Is what type of environment in our clubs, in our work environment, at home. This is what inclusion looks like. Now, when I advance the slide, I think on your phones and on your devices, you're gonna have to move with it. I think it's an option that's gonna tell you the presenter has moved the slide, so you're gonna have to move it forward if it didn't move automatically. So these are some of the topics we're gonna discuss within my time today, and I'm gonna try to get through these. In order to have inclusion, you need to understand that there are various dimensions of identity. We all have different levels of identity. And once we understand that, we can begin to make connections and develop relationships. We also, with inclusion, we have to understand that there is a difference between equality and equity. We'll talk about that really quickly. We need to understand our biases. The biggest thing that keeps us from offering inclusion is your biases. And we're going to talk about that because, believe it or not, we all have biases based on our environment, the way we grew up. It's the way our mind works. We'll talk about that later. Microaggressions, how many have heard of those? They exist. They exist. And sometimes they can be intentional or unintentional, subtle or aggressive, but they exist. And then some tips on how to create an area of inclusion. So here's this identity wheel, and this was thought up by a couple of scientists, psychologists, and this is just dimensions of identity, and there's various ones. We have internal dimensions, external dimensions, and organizational dimensions. In this room, I can tell you my internal dimension changes. It changes over time. When I was 26, age was not a factor. The age that I am now, when I came home from DC yesterday, my knees were hurting from all of that walking in O'Hare, then getting to the Uber, then unpacking, lifting that suitcase. My body told me, girl, you getting older. Age has a factor. But when I was 26 and we were traveling and I could go to the club, party to 4, get up. Yeah, I used to do that. Party to 4 on Saturday and be at church on Sunday in the choir with my robe on. With not one tire. Let me try that now. My daughter I had to go and help her because her car stalled and I didn't get to bed till after 1. And I knew I wanted to be here early. That was hard for me. I was mad that I had to get out of the house at 1 something to go help jump her because she wanted to get Wingstop and then turn the lights off. Age plays a factor. External dimensions, educational background plays a factor. Parental status plays a factor. 4 years ago, when Taylor was in high school, everything was around band. What she had to do, this activity, that activity. Now that she's in college, all I get is, Mom, can I get a cash app? I don't have to run out and do different things for her, but she's not an immediate responsibility, but I still have some. But so those are some different layers of identity. Race plays a factor. All of those things play a factor. And when we can begin to acknowledge those different identities amongst those we work with, live with, have relationship with in our clubs, it helps to foster inclusivity. If I want to understand that there may be some people that just I observed Ramadan. Well, that started March 22nd, ends, I think, at sunset today. During Ramadan, that's a period of fasting. We were doing trainings with inclusion in DC. We had to take our time to honor Ramadan. We didn't have to, but to create an atmosphere of inclusion, we wanted to acknowledge those individuals that may not want to eat with everybody. So we got another room where they can leave. We held their lunches. They can take them with them when they were done with the training, but that helped to foster inclusion. It made them feel welcome. Wow, you're concerned about me. That's why areas of identity is important. If you have any questions, let me know as we're going through this. We're talking about equity and equality. These two pictures help us to see the difference. I'm a visual learner, so you can tell me a definition, but helping me to see it makes it more impactful for me. Equality says that everybody has opportunity to get the same resources and opportunities. We all have access. But equity says that my access may be different than yours. This conference is a prime example. Everybody had the opportunity to be in this room. In this whole conference, you could have been here. However, to afford equity, they opened up a Zoom component. For those that could not travel and be in person, they're able to connect online. That's why I can utilize it. That helps to foster inclusion. At my job, when we have meetings, we have microphones on every table because there may be people in the room that's hearing impaired, but they don't want to disclose that in an open forum. It's hard for me to hear. Therefore, whenever we speak, we ask everybody to use the mic, stand up and use the mic. That way, everybody feels part of the meeting. We have tools in our team session where if you can turn on closed caption in every meeting, you may have problems seeing that screen, but the closed caption could tell you what I'm saying. That fosters inclusivity. Same thing we can do with our meetings, with our families, and understanding the difference between equity and equality is very important with inclusion. Now, I know this may look kind of hard, so you may be able to look on your phone, those that are on Zoom. Who can read this statement? Who can read this? If you can read it, just come on, shout it out real loud and read it. I just won. I think I got one person and somebody was over here saying it. Go ahead, loud. You need you to project. Go ahead.
Couldn't believe that I could actually understand what I was reading. The phenomenal power of the human mind. According to a research team at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and the last letter be in the right place. The rest can be a total mess, and you can still read it without a problem. This is because the human mind doesn't read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole.
Isn't that amazing? Thank you. Thank you. Isn't that amazing that you can look at that? Now, there are some benefits and there are some drawbacks to the fact that we can make quick assumptions. The human mind can absorb information so quickly and we're able to move forward. If it's a fire, everybody know to get up and get out of here, right? If the alarm went off, you freezing, you dropping, I'm gonna go grab my purse and we're gonna run out of here and my trophy for my club. And we're gonna run out of here, right? So we know we're gonna get out of here. Your brain can automatically do that. But the drawback to that is it also limits our ability to make good decisions. Good decisions. And this is where biases come in. This is where we begin. And there are some common biases that form. Like I said, everybody has a bias. You have biases. It's part of your human nature. It's the way we were wired. Certain experiences that we have entertained and experienced in our lives help us fashion out. This is how this is going to outcome. Prime example. Anybody ever dated somebody you was like, I would never do that again. I am not going to date this type of person again. I see them coming. I know you when I see you, and I'm not going to entertain that. And if somebody starts to begin to display those characteristics, you cutting them off. I gotta move back. I can't do that. That's because of the experience you had. But it could be that this person could be very beneficial to you. They just have some of those mannerisms, but not necessarily that same characteristic. You have to give it some time. You have to think about those biases. These are 3 common biases that people will often use. Affinity bias. That's the one where you gravitate that people that's like you, have common themes that look like you. If I was to go into the room when I first started Toastmasters and I went to the very first conference, I was looking for the African-American women. And I wanted to sit at their table because I did not know anybody. And I was the only one there from my club. We were over somewhere north when they used to have them at that big hotel north. It was by Skokie. Yeah. Yeah, and that was my first one going to, and when I walked into the room, I was like, there's nobody here from Toastmasters or PCPSA. They said they were, okay, I'm gonna sit over here. And that was because that was my affinity. I felt comfortable with them. But after a while, I was like, no, Yvette, you are limiting your opportunity to learn and to meet people. So I made it a point to introduce myself to 2 different people. And one of them no longer is here, and now his name is escaping me. He became my mentor. What? Oh my God, what is his name? His name is escaping me. His wife passed. He relocated to Florida. Bill Morrell, yes. I made it a point to meet him, and he became a mentor and actually helped me to make it to a district level contest. I think that was in 2017. I didn't place. I didn't even come in 3rd place, but I got on the stage. That was the important. And that was good because I stepped out of that affinity bias. Biases are okay. It's troublesome when you leave them unchecked. When you stay in that, if I had just stayed in that one bias that I don't want to meet anybody else that doesn't look like me, what type of relationships would I have? What limitations would I have in my growing and learning if I stuck to that? The other one is confirmation bias. I want to get around people that believe what I believe, and that's it. But you'll never learn anything else. We would not have acknowledged, that was a corporation acknowledging Ramadan. We wouldn't have done that if we did not hear from our Muslim employees. I'm a Christian, so I don't celebrate that, but I acknowledged it. I understood our differences, and we're able to move forward. I'm not going to remain in my bubble, and that's it. So confirmation bias will also cause you to not have inclusion. I only want to be around my clique, my kind, my tribe, where you're going to be stuck in your circle and you'll never grow. Then another one that I found that was interesting to me was this self-serving bias, where you always blame somebody else. It's the man's fault. Who is the man? Who is the man? No, my grandmother said, nothing beats failure but a try. If you want to change some things, it's got to start with you. It's got to start with the man in the mirror. You have to take ownership and put some skin in the game. Nothing is just going to happen and come to you. I remind my daughter that all the time. Nothing is just going to happen by osmosis. I think it will. I think it will. I think it will. No, you're going to have to put some skin in the game. You're going to have to not go out and kick it with your friends and do your homework, or your grades are going to go down and you will be on academic probation on your way home to a job, because you cannot come home and not do nothing with me. So self-serving biases, these are some of the biases that exist. And if we find ourselves operating in them, it's okay, but check it. It's okay to have them, but check it. Push yourself to step out of that comfort zone and limit that so that you can continue to have an environment of inclusion. So of those 3 that we just talked about, just do a quick survey. Just want to survey the room. Nobody will know what you answered. Which one of these is your primary bias? Which one of these do you operate in? Mine was affinity bias. And you can see what the room looks like as people are surveying. Which one of those are your most common bias? If Taylor was in here, hers would be that self-serving bias. It's always somebody else's fault. Always. Thank you. Thank you for participating. Thank you. I know I'm getting close on time, so I'm good. Oh, okay. Thank you. So you can see the common theme is that affinity bias. So I'll challenge you to be mindful of that. Be mindful of always gravitating to what's comfortable, what's the norm, what feels good to you. Step out of that, because you're limiting your opportunities to grow and you're limiting inclusion. So be mindful of that. Thank you for your participation. So let's look at some micro. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. I know I'm giving you a lot of information. So if you want to, I have my contact information at the end. You could take a picture of it and we could talk about this further if you like. Microaggressions exist. They're everyday, subtle, intentional, and oftentimes unintentional things that people do that are geared towards historically marginalized groups of people. I want to show you some examples. That's the corporate definition of microaggressions. Let me show you some examples and see if any of these sound familiar. Have you ever heard somebody say, "You're so articulate"? Ooh, you're so articulate. As if, and it's not just necessarily just Black people, but as if the only way we could be articulate is if I went to school or I had to do, like, the norm is that we're not articulate. You're so articulate. Or another one that I've heard before, I don't see race. We're all human. We're all human. It's just, I don't see color. I don't see race. We're all human. And that is a microaggression. And why? Because that limits, it devalues the experiences that people of color have had. And what you're doing is you're saying, I'm not going to hold that against you as if me being Black is a bad thing. I'm not going to hold it against you that you're a woman. It's okay. It's okay. I understand. You have to be a little bit more aggressive, but that behavior is acceptable by a male. Those are microaggressions, and microaggressions takes away inclusivity. This other one, I don't know if anybody's ever heard that before. I don't see color. I don't see color. I just see people as people. Again, that's diminishing the things that we people of color have had to experience. It's actually saying that that's not even valuable when it is, because that's who makes me who I am. Those experiences help build me and form the person you see today. So to say that it doesn't exist or is not as valuable is to diminish me, which will eventually make me pull back and not want to share, not be conducive, not be inclusive. And then the project or whatever you're working on is diminishing because you don't have the full support of your team. Of microaggressions, and I'm sure that there are plenty others that people have seen and experienced. And if you have, let's talk about how we can move forward. There was a Harvard Business Review done, and they gave some steps on how to deal with microaggressions. And there are 3 ways. You can either let it go. Usually the one that is offended, if they let it go, that doesn't really help the situation. All it really does is make us feel less valued, and then we begin to deplete. We begin to step back. We don't want to be as inclusive and part of the team. You could respond immediately. Well, that might cause some problems with the one that did the aggression. They may get offensive. It may get turned into something really big that really wasn't. They may respond back, well, what I meant was, whoa there. No. Or you can just say, I'll do it later. And then the person that did it might forget and the impact might not be as great. So what I suggest is that you discern which path to take. And once you've identified which path to take, is this a relationship worth keeping? Is this a person that could possibly benefit and aid to my development and my growth and my maturity and my professional growth, my career path? If it is, then if that is, choose which one of those work best. Maybe it's, can we have a private conversation? I'd like to talk to you about a statement that was made and share with you how it made me feel. Instead of saying, you said that all of us are articulate and I didn't appreciate that. You said, no, take them to the side, privately, professionally. Let me explain to you how it made me feel. I felt that you didn't think that I was capable enough to communicate because of my skin color, and that maybe you avoid talking to me or avoid allowing me to express in the meeting because you don't trust that I'll be articulate when I speak up. And sometimes I feel demoralized with that. And being able to share that in a professional setting with someone and allowing them to explain to you, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for that to come across that way. I apologize. If you are the offender, acknowledge it. Don't act like it didn't happen. Acknowledge it. And then immediately begin to say, well, how can I express myself differently with you? How would you prefer we talk about this situation? It's all in the way you present it and communicating. And to be able to disarm it, to defy it, and then decide. Decide if we're going to interact again. Was that response legitimate? Did they really mean what they said? Or was that just something that just placated and move forward so we can get to the next, check the box, done? The authenticity of it, was it real? Did they really mean to make that connection with me? So here's some other things that you can do to help create an inclusive environment. When we're going into these conversations, you need to assume positive intent. Maybe they did not really mean to be that way. Maybe they just did not understand. Maybe this is the way, remember those dimensions of identity? Maybe this is the way they were raised. So they didn't even have to deal with people of color. And now we're in this inclusive environment. So this is a whole new concept. Maybe that's why. So let's assume positive intent. And let's seek to understand. It's not to point fingers, it's not to blame. It's to seek to understand. Let me understand, why did that bother you? Let me understand, why did you say that to me? Let me understand those actions. It could be that maybe you were excluded from the meeting because this meeting just didn't concern you. You just don't have to be in everything. It just didn't concern you. Maybe this was a decision that was above your pay grade. You never know. And then foster an environment of trust. The only way you can foster an environment of trust is you have to be vulnerable. You have to be, as, I don't know if anybody knows Pastor Mike Todd, but he uses the quote, hot, humble, open, and transparent. That's the only way you're going to be able to create an atmosphere of trust. You will not trust me if I'm always getting from you and you never receive from me. If I never show my vulnerabilities and where I may be weak, it's okay to say, I don't know. I didn't understand. It's okay to do that because that shows that you're human and that we can relate, that you've made a mistake. It's okay. My pastor says that if you make a mistake, it can be two things for you. It can be your tombstone where you're stuck there and die, or it can be your stepping stone where you move and desire to do better the next time and to step up over that. So fostering an atmosphere of trust, making connections, that identity wheel helps us to make connections. Making those connections and making people feel wanted, feel needed, feel valued in the room. And then take ownership. If you make a mistake, I just said that, own it. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make you less of a leader if you say, I messed that up. It doesn't. It helps. It helps. Believe you me, it helps. And then remember these things. Remember that there is a difference between intent and impact. There is a huge difference between intent and impact. What you meant and what I received are two different things. There's a difference between intent and impact. When I was leaving out this morning, my daughter said, Mama, you wearing that dress? It's too late to change. I'm late. Yes, I am. Now, I thought it was, and then when I got here, a couple of people was like, oh, that's such a cute dress. You look so nice. But my daughter said, Mama, you wearing that dress? The intent, the impact of that was like, Dad, I probably should have went in and changed. It's too late now. I got to go. I got to go. But she didn't mean to be offensive. She was just asking a question, but it impacted me differently. So there's a difference between intent and impact. Seek to understand the experiences of your peers. Seek to understand. One of the things that I love at my job when we start our meetings, our weekly team meetings, we start off with a motivational moment. Whatever your motivational moment is, it can be. And we have a diverse team. So some people have brought in different things that they like to cook and showed us YouTubes of making these weird looking cookies. I'm like, okay, cool. I love it. I was able to show one of my motivational quotes, the Maya Angelou that I opened up today with. So different things will help you to get to know your peers, doing different icebreakers. We had one where we had to sell something. Find something in your house that you can sell for 1 minute. That could be a Toastmasters table topic for those that are in the room. You had to sell it for 1 minute. And people were selling their cats. They were selling their dogs. They were selling their husband. I'm like, okay. But it was interesting. It was interesting to see, and you would get to know them on a different level. So getting to know those people that you work with. And don't get offensive. Don't get offensive. Lean in with that positive intent. Don't think that everybody's out to get you. Don't think that everybody is out to you. Yeah, it's you. No, don't be offended by it. Understand, in seeking to understand, you open up that environment to have a dialogue, right? So don't be offensive. And then learn better and do better. Learn better and do better. Any questions? I don't know how much time I have left. Oh, okay, cool. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions on Zoom? No questions at all? Any comments? Did you learn something? Hot was humble, open, and transparent. Hot. Humble, open, and transparent. And that could be a bit uncomfortable at sometimes, but I love that because I want to remain humble. It's always an opportunity to learn. Open. I'm open to exchange. I'm open to share what it is that I know and what I don't know, and transparent. I'm just going to be honest. I'm just going to be honest at who I am. Yes.
My question is in regards to microaggression.
Mm-hmm.
I think that person being aggressive, trying to be nice. How do you deal with that when they're just trying to be nice, but they're not aware that they're being aggressive? How do you interact?
Good question. So the question was, what do you do with a person that has an offender of a microaggression when they're actually just trying to be nice? So that's that intent and impact. When they're just trying to be nice, so you have to lean in with trust, with positive intent, and you have to explain how that made you feel. So if the statement that they said made you feel as quote unquote some kind of way, you have to be able to take them to the side and have a dialogue. It's all about communicating and let them know how that statement made you feel. And when you let them know how that made you feel, then they can get a better understanding of, okay, that could have been a microaggression, and I apologize for that. But the key is they won't know unless you speak up. Take courage to speak up. I saw another hand.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I think it's imperative that if you do not speak up, then you allow them to keep doing that. If someone steps on your toe and you don't say anything, they're going to keep stepping on it. And then it becomes your fault because they have no idea. You have not taken the opportunity to tell them. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
Right.
But if you keep allowing them to do that, you said to them, this is okay.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why it's important. Yeah, give her a hand for that. That's why it's important. You have to speak up. You have to share it. It may not be the opportune time to do it right then and there, but taking them to the side at some point and speaking up, because it becomes cyclical and they'll keep doing it and they're not aware. They're not aware. So another hand.
Oh, yeah. So kind of like harassment is that type of, is the type of harassment if you keep doing what they keep on doing, or is it going to be more towards more of a bias type of speaking?
That's a good question. Harassment is a whole different game. That's aggressive. Like harassment is a whole different game. Biases are those things that you have grown up with that shaped you to be who you are. And once you identify those different types of biases, you can begin to check them. That affinity bias, that confirmation bias, where I only talk to people that think like me. When you begin to see those biases, that's when you can begin to check them. Harassment is different. So if somebody is causing harm to you and physical harm, you need to take the necessary precautions to make sure you're safe, that you're in a good place. Her hand, and then there was someone over there.
So our Toastmasters Club has traditionally used the introductions of Madam and Mr. And it was pointed out to us
Mhm,
about a year ago by a new member that
mhm.
that might be a problem for
Mhm.
some people
Yes,
in terms of not respecting their gender choices.
yes.
And so we've been struggling with that. And I just wondered if your club has, if you have any comments on that, or maybe anybody else in the room.
Yeah, I'm
Because we've
open
always said,
to,
Madam Toastmaster, Mr. General Evaluator and so forth.
I'm open to that as well, because we are at our corporate club, we are addressing that because we use the pronouns and we allow people to introduce themselves with their pronouns. So if someone comes up and say, my name is Yvette Beasley, my pronouns are they, them, you would not say Madam this Toastmaster or Madam Contest Chair, because I use the pronoun they. So I'm open to what Toastmasters is pulling together for that. I understand the respect factor, but I think just saying contest chair, Toastmaster of the day, Sergeant at Arms, whatever that role is, and just dropping the madam or sir from the introduction.
For a while, we were hyper-focused on unconscious biasness, and now it seems like it's dimmed, as well as diversity and inclusion in the workplace has dimmed. There were goals around meeting certain criteria, or certain levels at some point, as far as getting women more on the in C-suites and managerial positions, and it seems like it's dimmed a little bit. And I just wanted to get your opinion. Do you feel like that's true, or whatever happened to unconscious bias? I know it still exists, but we're not talking about it anymore.
It still exists, and Blue Cross Blue Shield Association, we are aggressively addressing that. They have more people that look like us in the C-suite, in the executive leadership suite. We are doing trainings with our people managers that all of them have to go through this. We're calling it continuing our journey, creating psychologically safe environments and diverse environments, challenging the way they bring on talent. So it's still alive and well, and we have performance measures that will speak to that if they're meeting those criteria. I believe that it is something that we have to take on as individuals. And when we begin to create those diverse environments, those inclusive environments, making everybody feel belonged, then we can begin to see the change that we're looking for. Michael Jackson said it best. I'm looking at, it's got to start with me, the man in the mirror. What am I doing to foster inclusivity? When I see it not happening, when I see coworkers or peers being dismissed because of, or things being said, microaggressions, do I have the courage to stand up and say, I think what you said was offensive? And here's why I say that, because to me, it made me feel this way. So I think it starts with us. And if we want to keep that spark going, we have to be the one to fan the flame, right? If not, we can't take that situation, that self-serving bias, and say, oh, that's somebody else's job. I don't see color. We can't take that posture. We can't take that posture. We have to take some ownership. Is there any questions online or in Zoom?
More on equality. Can you speak a little more on equality and equity?
Equality and equity. Again, let me go back to that picture. Equality and equity. So what that says is that equality says that everybody has the opportunity and the resources to do the same thing. Go to college. Everybody, because you are in the United States, you have an opportunity to go to college. Equity says that this person may be able to afford it. This one cannot. So we will have to probably extend financial aid, or there's some grants to help get them to the door. Equality, because I'm a US citizen, I can go to school. I can do that. But equity says that I might not be able to afford it. I may not even know how to get to college. Maybe in my family, the highest grade level was 8th grade, or didn't even make it out of high school. I was the first-time college student in my family to lead the way for my daughters. But in the beginning, that wasn't there. Nobody else had done that. Equity says, let me help you get there. Let's level the playing field. As you see in this picture, the difference between equity, the ladder for one is taller than the other, but everybody has access to that tree, right? Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, where does value come in at? Because we all are raised with certain values, and if those values bump up against someone else with different values, then how does this whole thing play?
So it's based on your beliefs, right? And in order for me to be able to bring my authentic self and feel included, I need to be able to express my values. Prime example, we were having a meeting in Washington, and one person stood up because we're introducing pronouns. Everybody is talking about pronouns, and which way you do your gender identity is totally up to you. And one person stood up and said, I'm not saying pronouns. I don't believe in that. She, he, that's what I learned, and I don't believe in that. And me working in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, I had to make sure that the place was safe for those that did have pronouns. So my response to him was, yes, I understand that you may have that value that you don't see they, them. But to foster a place of inclusion where everybody feels welcome to bring their authentic self, we need to share pronouns. And this is a learning lesson, so that the ones that have pronouns that they want to share, they, them, they feel comfortable to be here. They're here in this room. They're people managers. They're here, and they need to feel comfortable just like you do. So because of that, yes, your values say, I don't believe in that. It's either she or him. That's fine if that's what you believe. However, to respect the diversity and difference of identity, we're going to give them that space to feel comfortable.
Yes, well, I'll give you a good example. Today, we got a complaint over the line that said that earlier that people had a problem with the whole religious thing that was going on, that they didn't share those values that was going from the front of the stage. Like, why is this happening at a Toastmaster meeting? So they had an issue with that. So I'm saying that, so how does that bump up against what you're saying here?
That's, I'm not a subject matter expert. Everybody is entitled, and I think I'm at time. Okay, everybody is entitled to their opinion. All of us are. Thank you so much for this opportunity. We can talk further if you like offline. Enjoy the rest of the conference and have a great day, everybody.